Evening, everybody. It's Strongbow. I'm going to do something a little bit different tonight. While watching my other Locksport videos on YouTube, I was watching a video by Lockpicking's Gal. If you haven't seen her channel, I will link her down below. And she was doing an entry into Curiel's, I'm not sure, was it 100th subscriber video? I'm not sure. And that giveaway is already over, so I can't enter that. But I had not heard of Curiel before, and I checked out his videos. Pretty interesting stuff. I subscribed to him. I'm going to do sort of a honorary is the word. I'm going to do an entry into his contest anyway, even though it's over, just in the spirit of things. In that he asked, and this happens to be in line with the video I was going to do tonight anyway, he asked that you shoot a video with some advice to beginning lockpickers, something that you wish you'd known or would have liked to have known a little better when you first started out. And what I'm going to do is show what I've learned about picking spool pins. And I'm going to use these ace locks that you've seen a lot on my channel recently, because this is mostly what I've got that's better than cheapo master locks. And one of the reasons I'm going to do so is I've seen some folks that I consider to be sort of my peers, at least in terms of them having gotten into Locksport videos around the same time I did. Most of them have progressed further along than I have, because they've done videos of themselves picking open locks that I haven't even attempted yet. But they all seem to struggle somewhat with these Ace hardware locks. And I seem to have done pretty well mastering them. Well, I shouldn't say mastering them. I've done pretty well on the ones that I've got. So I'm going to show you what it is that, how it is that, I get through these locks. These are pretty infamous for having pretty decent tolerances. These are not high-end locks, but they are made with fairly decent tolerances, and they tend to be chock full of spool pins. Every one of these has at least 2 spool pins that I know of, and in some of them I think they've got 3 or 4. So I'm going to demonstrate how I pick spool pins, at least the ones in these particular locks. And that's not the tension tool I want. That is, yeah. And this is going to illustrate a point that all the more experienced lock pickers make to beginning lock pickers all the time. And when I was a beginning lock picker, I got tired of hearing it too, until I learned that it's true. And that is, tension is everything when picking locks. Tension is actually more important than what you do with the pick. You're going to feel more with the tension tool than you do with the pick. And light tension is the key. There are some locks that are the exception to the rule where heavy tension is appropriate. But if you think you're dealing with spool pins, light tension is the key. That's about as much tension as I'm going to put on there. And Chris Capune did a demonstration the other day where he was dealing with an American lock of, you can run his pick between the tension tool and his finger. That's about the right amount of tension. This particular 30 millimeter Ace lock, like I said, it has at least 2, maybe 3 spool pins in it. It's a 4-pin lock, and like I said, at least 2 of them are spools. And let me just get it started here. In fact, let me zoom in a bit here. Yeah. Okay, that camera function doesn't work the way I thought it did. Oh well. Now I've got 2 cameras running. Hopefully one of them will at least get a decent view of what I'm doing with the tension tool here. I've tried to shoot this a few times, and usually my right hand is blocking the view of the left. So let me at least get into one of the spools. You'll see me just let off the tension completely frequently when I know that, you know, I've overset things and so on. And okay, there we go. I just dropped into a spool. And so when you feel a spool, you'll know it by, it'll drop in, and then if you push on that pin, you're going to see, and if you got the right amount of tension, you'll feel that counter rotation. You'll hear advanced lock pickers, more advanced lock pickers anyway, talk about counter rotation. That's exactly what happens if you got the right tension on. And as you push up on the pin, you'll feel that pin making the cylinder rotate backwards. And if you got the right tension on there, you'll feel that. And thus you'll feel when it rotates backwards and then clicks that you actually correctly set the pin, as opposed to just setting into the spool. There, I just went into a spool, which I think I just barely touched it and it backed out, but there, I'm out of that spool, and I've got another one here. This one's a little bit harder to feel, as a matter of fact. That's the wrong pin. And you can see that I'm pulling that spool up, and then as I'm getting out of that spool, I'm dropping other pins, but there we go. All right, now we'll show the same thing on one of the 40mm locks, which is completely identical to that last one. Only difference is that in the 40mm, we're going to 5 pins. By the way, if you go to Ace Hardware to buy some of these, you got to be careful. You have to buy the ones that say high security on them. Check the back right there. They'll say 5 pins, pick resistance. There are some of these locks in the same size that only have 4 pins in them, and or don't say pick resistance. They've got just standard pins. You have to actually look at both for there, look for the high security, and check the back to at least see that it says pick resistance. Those of us that are really into the hobby and, you know, can deal with spool pins know that pick resistance doesn't really mean much. It just means spool pins. But if it doesn't at least have that much, they've just got plain pins in them, standard pins. And I actually bought 2 more of these that I'm going to, if this video continues going well, I'm going to actually open and pick these right out of the package on camera and see if I've actually learned anything about dealing with these locks, because most of these I had to pick at for weeks before I got the first open. But now I'm a lot better at opening spools. So hopefully we'll find out what I know that's actually skill on picking spools versus just kind of memorizing these locks a little bit. All right, I'm not even finding them now. This one can feel a little bit mushy at times. There we go, just dropped into one of them. All right, now I've got a pin that the head of this pick is a little bit broad, and I have to kind of work it and jiggle it to get it to work its way underneath this pin because it sets so low. There we go. And about half the time when I get in under there, I accidentally lift high enough to drop all the pins I've already got. All right, now I'm under it. It's one of those spools. You can see it's lifting the tension tool there. Now the next one out, I think this is number 4. I have to carefully work my way out to actually get the tip of my pick under the tip of the pin. There we go. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go through all of the ace locks I've got, and as long as it doesn't take too long to get through those, I'm going to get those other 2, open up those other 2 locks and try and pick them on camera right out of the package. there's one of the spools. I got lucky and just got it set right away. There's another one. Now this is the lock that I dubbed Pick Killer, because in learning how to do these over the course of my Locksport career so far, I've broken 2 picks on this lock until I finally got it open the first time a couple of weeks ago. It's no longer the Pick Killer, but it did kill 2 picks before I really learned what I was doing. It's still a little bit tricky. This is the oldest of my ace locks and has been picked at the most. So I think it's got a lot more wear inside than those others. So it can be a little bit trickier. There we go. I dropped into a spool. I got to find the right pin. There we go. And you see how it's pushing that tension tool up. And now my pick, as usual, is a little bit trapped there, but I can work it very carefully. And that's another spool. Got to wiggle under that one, and okay, definitely a spool here. Watch. See that tension tool moving up and down? And what's happening is as I get out of one, I'm dropping another one, and I keep having to go back and forth. I'm not real good at that part of it yet. The whole figuring out what order I really need to go. And there we go. All right, I'm gonna do one more of these that I've already got open and picked many times. This is also an ace. I assume it's got the same pins, but this is obviously a laminated steel instead of the brass. This one I actually find to be a little bit easier than those others. I don't know if Ace buys these from the same manufacturer as they do those brass ones. I would assume so, but I don't know. And you can see here, unlike master locks, you can see there's a little bit of movement in that core, but it's not the floppy, sloppy, rolls around all over the place that you get with a master lock. All right, just dropped into something, and there it is. Now watch. I'm gonna pull my hand back a little bit so maybe you can see a little better. Right there. Oh, I haven't quite got it under the... All right, there we go. I think I'm inside 2 spools here. There's one of them. And then back to the front. Here's the other one that, there we go. Yep, still counter rotating. I'm still inside of it. There. All right, that's gone pretty well. So let's proceed with so if you're looking for these on the shelf, this is a 54541. This is, most people call it, well, it's going to be labeled 1.5 inches or 38 millimeters. Most of us in the Locksport community call this 40 millimeters. And I bought this about 2 weeks ago with anticipation of doing this very video. Well, not so much on the subject of picking spools, but mostly just on having something available to expand my collection. Unfortunately, they kind of package these pretty well. They're hard to get out of the package. There we go. Get all this out of the way. All right, brand new lock, never been picked before. Let's give it a try. As you might know, these brass locks fresh out of the package, those edges can be pretty sharp. These certainly were when I first got them. So that can be a little bit rough on the hands for a while. All right, let's see what this one feels like. I've never picked this one before. If you're into picking in hand like I do most of the time, and a lot of other people, I notice most people in the Locksport community do picking in hand. I do also have one of those pan vices that I've used in a couple of videos, which I really liked for a while, but then I kind of got out of the habit of using it. Be careful around putting your thumb on this corner. I've developed a little bit of a callus now from doing it so much, but especially on these new locks where this is so sharp that after a few minutes, you're going to really regret doing that. You're not going to notice it at first, but it hurts.